Prabhupada ki jai. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachadine Nirvisesha Shindivari Paschati Dasatarine Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanam Jana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dalati Shrapadantekam Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripasindubhye Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So here it is 6:15 a.m. and where you are, it is probably somewhere between, for most of you, between noon and evening. And of course evening in South Africa. So, evening in Australia. So, Sundari Rod has asked me to talk about a topic on sacrifice and resistance, and I'll read what she said. She said, I want to talk about the topic of sacrifice and devotional service that will move us forward. And being in the mood of really asking yourself, what is it that I can give up that I'm not giving up in order to serve Krishna and Guru? What am I resisting in making the sacrifice? What do they want me to do that I'm still not willing to give up? And at the same time, being wise in this thinking and not prematurely, falsely renouncing where then we fall sideways. So it's an interesting question. He's asking about resisting an instruction or resisting perhaps an inspiration or realization we're getting from Krishna that we should move forward. And in a sense she's asking, when is that resistance actually intelligent? In other words, that if I try to execute a certain order prematurely, then it will have could have disastrous effects, at least bad effects. So when do I know when I'm resisting intelligently, and when do I know that I'm resisting unintelligently? When I'm meant to, when Sundari Radha says sacrifice, I think we can understand that as maybe giving up something that I'm attached to. And when do I know that I'm ready to give it up, and when would it be bad to give up? Something, and when I'm aware of what I'm resisting, then what does she say? Or asking, not even necessarily being aware of what I'm resisting, but asking myself, what is it that I'm resisting? And what does she say? What can I give up that I haven't given up yet? Or what's getting in the way? Well, I think the first way to analyze this, the way I like to analyze it, is the way you would analyze any relationship, because spiritual life in Krishna consciousness and bhakti means we are reconnecting with a relationship with Krishna. So then we'd ask the question, well, what's getting in the way of that reconnection? Well, as you would ask in any relationship, just like this weekend, my wife and I went to Miami, and she took a course on couples counseling by a man named Gottman, who developed a system. And there's many things that they do in couples counseling, basically to see where are the problems within that relationship, and how their actions and their attitudes are either positively or negatively affecting the relationship, and what they can stop doing and what they can do to help the relationship. So if we is anyone else having sound problems, or only question? Everything is connected. Everything should be connected properly. So if if we look at our relationship with Krishna, sounds, I do the same. What kind of problem? What does it sound like? Tell me what it sounds like. Is it going in and out? Is it crunching sound? Is it very quiet? I think a lot of it has to do with the connection. Internet connection, I don't know. Is it sometimes good? Lots of friction sounds. Let me just like this. So we're getting you're just going straight into the phone. Is that better? Different? I'll go closer. Hold on a minute. That's a bit too close, huh? Well, too close for comfort. That's better? Oh, okay. Something strange is happening, and I don't know what it is. And someday we'll find out. Okay. So, as in any relationship, there are things that we do that are useful or beneficial or enhance a relationship, and things that we do that are detrimental. So the first principle is, when we're talking about surrender to Krishna, let's not impersonalize surrender. There's a person there. So it's very personal. So what is it that I could be doing or giving up that would enhance the relationship? What could I be doing, accepting? Because this is the principle of surrender, as given in Chaitanya Charitamrita, to accept what's favorable, to reject what's not favorable. So is there anything I'm doing which is not favorable that I should stop doing? Is there anything I'm not doing that I should be doing that's favorable? So that's what she's asking. And then, but Sundari Radha is also saying, but is there a danger in giving up something prematurely or accepting something prematurely? And that could be. And then how do you become aware of what you need to give up? And how do you stop resisting it? All right, so just to prepare for this question, I thought we need to define what surrender is. Because whenever you're using words like surrender here and resistance or sacrifice, these are the words she's using. So what does it mean to sacrifice? What does it mean to surrender? So here's the definition. Surrender means acceptance or firm belief that wherever the surrendered soul lives, he is always protected by the Supreme Personality of God, that he's never alone or unprotected. That's from Bhagavatam. From Chaitanya Charitamrita, surrender means that not that we demand something from the Lord, but that we completely depend on his mercy. If Krishna likes, he may keep me in a poverty-stricken condition, or if he likes, he may keep me in an opulent position. The devotee should not be concerned in either case. He should simply be serious about trying to satisfy the Lord by rendering him service. Nectar of devotion, nectar of instruction. Surrender means that one has to become confident. The devotee thinks, Krishna will surely protect me and give me help for the successful execution of devotional service. Surrender means that one will accept whatever the Guru says. It is not that one thinks, I do not care for my Guru's order. A devotee's self-surrender means that he wants nothing in return for his loving service. Full surrender means accepting everything favorable to God consciousness, rejecting everything unfavorable. And another one more. Our surrender means we agree with Krishna in everything, although we are individual. If Krishna says you have to die, we die out of love. But we are individual. Yes. Individual means you have your choice. So, if we go back to the first definition, surrender means that I'll always be protected. So, and surrender means we don't ask, but despite whatever situation Krishna puts us in, we serve. Krishna will protect me. I just have to focus on my service. So, the answer to the question, how do I know if the surrender, you could say, is premature, or it's too much, or it's going to have a negative result because I'm trying to do more than I'm capable of doing? The answer to that is in some ways being described here. It's going to be based on faith, because if my faith is strong, then I have confidence, more confidence than I can achieve success in doing something which may be difficult. My faith is weaker, then perhaps I'm able to do it, but I don't have the confidence that I can do it. So then I don't do it. The first principle of surrender is to accept whatever is favorable for a devotional service. Now, then you could say, well, perhaps what's favorable for you is not favorable for me, and that's inherent in the question. And so how do I know something's favorable for you but not favorable for me? Well, there's certain things which obviously are favorable for all of us, and it's not a pick and choose question. That we have to do certain things. These are foundational. So, but in terms of Varna and ashram, one Varna, one ashram may be favorable to you, not favorable to me. In terms of renunciation, then you might think, well, if I try to renounce beyond my realization, then perhaps it won't be favorable, because then I will fall back. And that's true. But I said renunciation beyond my realization. In other words, I cannot renounce beyond my taste, beyond my level, beyond my realization. All that I can do is adopt certain practices. I may not be renounced, but I'm renounced enough in the sense that there's certain things that I must do, and I will engage in those. Those are preliminary necessities. I must do them. So maybe I could say I'm not actually renounced fully, but I know I need to do these things, so I do it. So that's one stage of renunciation. The more real stage of renunciation is renunciation as a byproduct of advancement, a byproduct of taste. So then the question will come, well, how do I know in my renunciation if I'm going to be able to sustain it? And then we come back to the question, well, there's certain things that we have to sustain if we want to be Krishna conscious. So I may not be renounced, but then I commit, I'm determined, I make a vow. And that's one of the reasons we make vows. Because maybe we're not yet on that level of renunciation, but we need to be on a certain level of renunciation. So therefore we take a vow that I will maintain this. So that's important, because if we simply wait to reach a certain level of renunciation to renounce certain things, perhaps we won't renounce them until later in life, and then we will suffer having not given up certain things. So some things we give up because they're necessary to give up for our spiritual advancement, and some things we give up when we are more evolved. So there's two levels. So we have to at least establish certain, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. These things we need to give up if we want to establish a foundation. But whether we get married or not, that's another thing. Whether we live on this standard or that standard, that will evolve according to our advancement and our nature as well. So we have to make a distinction between what is necessary to renounce to establish a foundation of bhakti. So, there's certain instructions which are that Prabhupada has given, that they're foundational, and we can't deny those instructions. We have to do. But there's other things we know, particular attachments we may have or whatever, that are blocking our bhakti. So the question is, how do we face them? How do we acknowledge them? And how do we know how to deal with them? Well, surrender means, one definition of surrender means what's favorable, do what's favorable. So then always the question will be, if I do this or if I don't do that, is that going to help me in Krishna consciousness or is it not going to help me? So that requires some objectivity beyond your attraction or resistance to doing something. You just have to ask, is it good? Should I do it? Because a lot of things in Krishna consciousness, in the beginning, you're not going to want to do. And so your motivation is simply going to be, because this is going to be good for my bhakti, so I'm going to do it. That's just why you do it. It's not that you're renounced. It's not that you're attached to doing that Krishna conscious activity. It's just that it's the right thing to do. You don't even want to do it, but you know these are necessities. I have to do certain things if I want to be Krishna conscious. And how will I get to a higher level of renunciation if I don't do these things? So, is it favorable? Okay, if it's favorable, then I should do it, right? Yeah, of course. Then you say, it's favorable, but I have a resistance to doing it. Okay, what's the resistance? Why is the resistance? And what Prabhupada would say is, if it's favorable, or probably better we discuss it in the context, if it's necessary. Okay, favorable, maybe it's favorable, I remain brahmachari, but I can't. But it's not necessary that I remain brahmachari. I can get married, I can be vanaprastha, I can be sannyas. So favorable and necessary are different. But if something is necessary, then, and we're resistant to it, then Prabhupada's reply to that would be, why are you resisting something which is necessary for you? Like, it's just a matter, as a matter of fact, you don't. If you're serious about Krishna consciousness, you just do what you have to do. And you don't say, well, I'm not on that level yet. No, it's foundational. That's something you have to do. So you have to distinguish between what's necessary and what would be favorable. So perhaps in your situation, you're a brahmachari and you decide to remain brahmachari. That's favorable for you. You know that you wouldn't make it as grihastha, or you don't want to be a grihastha. Okay, but let's say you're a brahmachari and you realize that you cannot make it as a brahmachari, that being grihastha would be better. So that's favorable. So that's good. Then it's good for you because it's favorable. That's subjective. But it's not necessary to remain brahmachari for everybody. So you decide what's favorable. So then if something is deemed as favorable, then Prabhupada would say, then you must do that. It's I don't want to make it sound so simple, but actually sometimes we complicate things to the point where we take something that's very simple, we complicate it so much that we can't even follow the instruction, which was a simple instruction. But what about this? But what about that? And if I feel this, and I get up on the wrong side of the bed that day, then how can you do that? It's like, no, it's a simple instruction. Just do it. It's necessary. So that's Prabhupada's answer, or say partial answer to this question. If it's necessary, do it. That's it. If it's a necessary aspect of devotional service, then there's no question of resisting, not resisting. You just do it. Resist or not resist, you do it. And it's always going to be favorable. It's always going to be good because it's a necessary aspect of bhakti. Does that make sense? Yeah. So in other words, think of Krishna consciousness as a box of chocolates. There are certain chocolates you can't pick and choose. You have to eat those. And other ones you can pick and choose according to your appetite. So, yeah, that's the idea. So some things you don't pick and choose. All right. So now Sundararada is asking about resistance and how do we deal with resistance? Well, I looked up resistance and I knew, some words on the folio, they're not words that Prabhupada commonly uses, or he doesn't use them in the same context that we're using them in a particular discussion. But anyway, I looked up the word resistance anyway, and it's not always used in the same context, but it's usable in the context we're discussing, and I can adapt it. So this is from 11th canto, or the 10th canto, 28th chapter, I believe. Describing Lord Krishna as the supreme controller and God is almost a type of political analysis, referring as it does to a hierarchy of power and control. Supreme controller God. He's the top of the hierarchy. Such analysis of levels of power and hierarchies of rule is significant in a context in which one entity is not fully surrendered in love to a higher entity. So here's the point. In other words, control becomes visible or is consciously felt as control where there is resistance to that control. So I think this is Sridhar Nanamraj. What he's saying is that in love, there's no resistance to control. And where there's lack of love, there's resistance to control. So Krishna's God, so he's the controller. He controls us where we may be resistant to do what he wants or do what our spiritual master wants. We could say there's a lack of love there. And the more there's love, the less resistance there is. So then we can say resistance is symptomatic of a lack of love. And a lack of love is symptomatic of a lack of bhakti, lack of Krishna consciousness. So the more there's Krishna consciousness, the less resistance is there. And resistance also comes as a fear. I won't be able to handle this instruction. Or I won't be able to give up this attachment. Like how will I function without this attachment? Or how will I be able to execute an instruction which I deem it difficult? So resistance comes in terms of a fear that I can't execute an instruction or I can't give up something. And the interesting thing often about those fears is that a lot of those fears are generated from a lack of faith, either in ourselves or Krishna's empowering us. And that lack of faith may have no real factual standing. It's just an imagination that we can't do it. So that's something we have to consider, that whenever there's resistance, there's a feeling that I can't handle this. And then you have to ask yourself, well, is it true that I can't handle this? How would I know I can't handle it? Have I tried to handle it before? If the answer is, well, I haven't tried to handle it before, but I don't think I can, that it's not necessarily based in any objective reality. It's likely it's just a personal fear you have, which stems from a lack of faith. If you've tried to do something and failed, and you say, no, I'm not capable of doing this, or when I give up this attachment, it has a negative effect, that's my experience, then we can say, okay, then based on that experience, you have to adjust. You have to tweak it, modify your behavior. But if you have no experience and you're saying, I resist doing this because I don't think I can handle it, and on what basis do you think you can't handle it? It's just it's most likely a fear that's not based in reality. it's a fear in your own, let's say, based on your own weakness, or just based in an illusion that you can't handle something which you could actually handle. And also, Krishna, he does help you. So it can be a lack of faith in Krishna's help. So there's some comments here. So let's go back. Axel says, it seems easy to say that Krishna may keep us in a poverty-stricken situation if he pleases. But what if we have people who are financially dependent on us? Such a situation becomes difficult. To just trust, especially if we hear these things saying, Krishna may keep us in a poverty-stricken. If it were just us, that is one thing. But the people depending on us may not see it that way yet. Well, actually, Axel, Prabhupada does mention that. And unfortunately, I don't remember exactly where he says this. But he says, he gives an exemption for grihastas. In other words, we shouldn't pray. We shouldn't pray for wealth and so forth. But Prabhupada said, but grihastas are exempt because they have to maintain other people. So just like if I said, Axel, I want you to work for me and I'll pay you so much a month, and then I don't have the money, I might pray to Krishna because I know that if I don't give you that money, you can't live, and I promised you, and so forth. So what you're saying is right. And so Prabhupada said that, it's kind of an exemption. It's like an exemption for the grihasta. They can pray, my dear Lord, I have dependents. I'm in a poverty-stricken position. I need your help. Yeah. But as an individual, the mentality of the devotee is, I want to serve. And also, the mentality of a devotee when he has to ask for something like this is, excuse me for asking. I don't really want to ask. It's with reluctance I ask, but it's necessary. And sometimes when we would ask Prabhupada, can we pray for you? He would say, you can pray, but at the end of the prayer, or at some point in the prayer, you have to say, my dear Lord, if you so desire, then pray. So, because Prabhupada didn't want a prayer answered which wasn't Krishna's desire. So he'd say, I'm not sure if this is your desire, but if it is your desire, then please help us in this way. So it's kind of, it's the attitude that I don't want to demand from Krishna. I don't want to ask, or I don't want to tell him, no, you must do this, you must do that. Because that's not the attitude of bhakti. The attitude of bhakti is love. And love, submission accompanies love. Whatever you like, whatever you like. Make me happy, make me unhappy, it's fine. It's up to you. That mentality is what he wants to maintain, but circumstantially sometimes. People are dependent on him, so he has to pray, please. Okay, so if someone can provide the money, then we will hire Axel. So send your checks today to the Axel Fund, Axel Employment Fund, and we will employ Axel. So Vijay Lakshmi says, for health reasons, I had to go back to eating garlic and onions for the heart and as a blood thinner. Well, there's a story. Prabhupada had some illness and the doctor told him he had to eat chicken soup. Told his son. His father was actually going to do it because he thought he was going to die without it. And Prabhupada refused. Prabhupada just wouldn't do it, or his father brought it and he vomited just looking at it and he was fine. So eating onions and garlic is not a great sin. It is not so good for your consciousness. But if it's possible to find other remedies other than onions and garlic, it would be worth looking into. There is the homeopathic medicine, which is very effective for the heart. And I take it, or I took it when I had my heart problems. It was very effective. Unfortunately, it's called hawthorn berry. So you can look into that and look into other things. That's what I would do. Wow. Dramatic effects here. Okay. I just lost the internet. Okay. Is it not that we are resisting necessary things or favorable things because we think those things might be difficult and even painful? Yeah, that was my point about the fear. But one thing you should understand about fear, that oftentimes, as I was pointing out, but maybe it wasn't clear, that oftentimes fear is a belief that I can't handle something. But that something that I believe I can't handle is something I never tried before. So the belief could be totally an illusion. How do I know I can't? I'm afraid I can't do this. Well, how do you know? Have you tried? No, I haven't tried. And oftentimes when we face our fears, then we realize, oh, that was easy. Or maybe it wasn't easy, but I could handle it. The rewards are always very blissful when we try to do something that maybe we think we can't, or give up something maybe we think we can't. And at the same time, on one hand, maybe you could do it, and you just don't have the faith. Or whatever, you lack the determination. In some way you lack the strength. On the other hand, what Sundari Rod is saying is, well, how do we know when it's too much? Well, sometimes we have to face our fears and test those fears. Can I actually give this up, or can I actually do this? And maybe we can't. And then we know, no, that was too much, I can't do that. So the principle is we want to be steady in devotional service. So, okay, maybe I'm giving up too much too fast, and then I'm like a yo-yo. 1 week good, 1 week not. So I want to find a position where I'm steady. At the same time, I don't want to find a position where I'm steady that's below a level that I could maintain. So that's where the fear comes in, is that maybe I think I can't maintain a certain level, and I can, but I've never tried because I think I can't, or I think it'll be too difficult, or just for whatever reason I resist it because I think I'll suffer. And if that's incorrect, then we need to adjust. And if it is correct, then it means that this is the best I can do in this particular situation. You know, progressive devotional service is always considering how I can do better, right? So you consider how you can do better, and consider how you can do better in a way that you can maintain. How you can be steady. Yeah, so you can, if you're not sure how to give up stuff, I can give up something, or I can reach another stage, just try it and see what happens. And Krishna Karshani is saying that we don't do it because we think it might be difficult or painful. But even if it's painful, if it's devotional service, ultimately devotional service can't be painful. That's a contradiction. So, I mean, we might make it painful for ourselves. So oftentimes, we think it's painful, but then you do it and it's not painful, it's blissful. Okay. So, whatever that is, for you, you know what your resistance is. We have different conversations here. Vijay Lakshmi, where do I stand in terms of what you said about resistance? Well, if it's for your health, that's a different issue. Sometimes we have to do what we have to do for our health. But in those situations, when the doctor says you have to take onions or garlic or whatever, then naturally the devotee thinks, okay, is there something else that can work that's more sattvic? A lot of medicines we take aren't that sattvic. They have alcohol in them and this and that. But we try to find the most sattvic medicines. Obviously, medicines without meat. So if you can find if you have to take it for your health, it's okay. But it will have some effect on your consciousness. And so ideally, you'd rather take medicine that's more sattvic. What do you do about a lack of love? You can't force love. You do sadhana bhakti, that forces love out of you. Yeah, you can't force it out of you. But sadhana bhakti will force it out of you. That's what you do about love. It will develop. Resistance might fear I won't be able to follow the instructions of Guru Maharaj. How then can I take initiation? Yeah. Well, I think the answer is the same. You try to see if there's an alternative. Like, let's say I find a job. The hours are really bad. They want me at work at like 5 a.m. or something. So they think, well, then I'm not going to have a morning program. So, but maybe it's a good job, a job I like, good salary. But naturally, a devotee would think, this is not good for my bhakti, so let me find another job. Can I find another job? Right? So it's the same thing. Okay, doctor says take onions and garlic. Okay, if it's temporary, that's one thing. If I have to take this my whole life, then naturally the devotee thinks, okay, is there an alternative? Is there a better way? And if there isn't, what can you do? I have to do the job at 5, or I have to take the onions and garlic. What can I do? But if there is a better way, I should find it. At least I should try to see if there is a better way. That's the point. Does that make sense? Kanisha says, mostly we stand in our own way. Well, that's due to lack of faith. That's where we stand in our own way. So to answer Sundari Radha's question, that's why I brought up the faith principle. Because resistance often is connected with a lack of faith. That maybe if I had more faith, there wouldn't be any resistance to doing something or giving something up. You're often saying that surrender means love. Most of us don't have genuine love for Krishna, so how can we surrender to him? Well, what's interesting about this is that Prabhupada, even, and I was saying this a couple of days ago, even in his early lectures, 1966, whatever, from Tulsi, really fragrant. Tulsi Puja this morning, really fragrant jasmine. So, we were reading a lecture the other day, it was like 1966 or 1967. So Prabhupada was talking about serving Krishna with love to those people who obviously were just beginning Krishna consciousness. So love is the last stage. They were on one of the first stages. And Prabhupada's using the word love. So he was using it in the context of, you could say in a relative way, like if you get an instruction from your spiritual master or instruction from Shastra, and you sincerely follow that with the mood to please Guru, to please Krishna, that was Prabhupada's definition of love. In other words, whatever love, affection, pure motivation that you have within your own heart, then you serve Krishna that way. That's your love. Does that make sense? So, I don't have love, so how do we surrender? Well, Prabhupada was once asked, how do we love the spiritual master? And he said, follow your initiation vows. So you can say obedience is the first law of love. So, otherwise, we can just say, well, I don't have love of Krishna, and then because I don't have love of Krishna, you can't expect from me high level of surrender, the kind of surrender that a person who had love of Krishna would have. Or you can't expect me not to be resistant to so many things because I don't have love. And as we're saying here, love would destroy resistance. But that's not actually the way Prabhupada's explaining it. In the sense of prema, yes, that's true. But for us, Prabhupada has to redefine things according to the level we're at. So how do you define love in Vaidhi sadhana when you don't have love? Well, that's how you define it. Serving the order, following the order of the Guru with the purpose of pleasing him. Following Krishna's order with the purpose of pleasing him. That's how you define love. So that's love for us. And in terms of developing more love, the process of loving develops more love. Defining love as following the instructions. So following the instructions develops more love. And so we were saying yesterday that it's Krishna that gives you the love. It's Krishna that gives you the purification. And it's us that offers our feelings as purely as we can to Krishna. So as you offer your feelings purely to Krishna, then he will give you the love. He'll awaken the love. But you generate the right mood. You give whatever love you have, and then he'll give you more love. He'll endow you with love, with more and more love. You give what you have, your sincerity, your pure motivation. That's the idea. What should you do about destiny? And why does destiny affect my faith? Destiny doesn't have to affect your faith. Generally, as far as destiny, Prabhupada said that for a devotee, we depend on Krishna's protection. So whatever our destiny is or isn't, it's not so much of a concern for us. Our concern is how to serve Krishna, and then with faith that Krishna will take care of me. And if I have fears about my destiny, and then I may lack faith that Krishna will take care of it. Part of the reason we lack faith is we want our destiny to be taken care of in a specific way. And when we see it's not being taken care of that way, maybe we lose faith, rather than accepting that if I serve Krishna, however it turns out is perfect. It's just the way it's supposed to be. That is the proper kind of faith. That is a symptom of surrender. That however it works out, I accept that, and I accept that. Of course, then you might say, but it's not working out well. But then there's two ways to look at that. One is that's the way Krishna wants to work it out for you in this particular situation. And number two, maybe you have the wrong attitude or you're doing the wrong thing, and therefore it's not working out the way you want it because you're not doing it properly. So it could be that also. But if you're doing everything properly, then you accept the way it works out as Krishna's arrangement. But then you have to ask yourself, am I actually doing it properly? Is my improper execution or my lack of faith then causing this destiny or result? Because sometimes it is. And sometimes we don't notice that. And sometimes we think, well, Krishna's just making it difficult for me. When in fact, we're doing things which are producing results which are now difficult for us to deal with. So you have to understand that as well. Yeah. Onions and garlic. Well, Vijay Lakshmi, I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to say stop taking onions and garlic if that's what is saving your life. So certainly I wouldn't say that. Only that the principle of bhakti is do what's favorable. So it's favorable not to eat onions and garlic, but it's not favorable to die. It's not favorable to have a heart attack. So it's a balancing act, right? You have to adjust. So generally, we see that if a devotee wants to follow all the principles, then Krishna will. Generally, Krishna will guide them how they can do that, give them a situation, or reveal to you a different way to heal your ailment through change of diet. Change of diet is huge. And the more if I were in your situation, I would not just listen to my doctor, but I'm not saying don't listen to your doctor, but I would also study, because there are other doctors out there with other ways that they deal with the same issue, and maybe there are effective cures without onions and garlic. So that's what I would do. And it is now proven that high cholesterol has nothing to do with heart disease. Did you know that? Yeah. Isn't that interesting? I know there's more comments. If lack of faith is a cause of not being able to fully surrender, how to make our faith to Krishna stronger? How to achieve the stage of having full faith? Faith is, it develops as we advance, but there's a problem. There's a problem in giving any answer in which we say it will develop as you advance. Like we said, love will come. Krishna will give it to you. And it's true that faith will evolve as you advance. But the problem in that answer for some devotees is that they won't do anything. They just think, okay, well, I don't have to do anything. I'll just continue what I'm doing, and the faith will develop. So in a sense, it's true, but in a sense, there's another part of it that needs explanation. Because if thinking that it will all come, I don't have to do anything now to try to increase my faith, then that's wrong, and it would be a problem for you. And faith comes in different ways. And we hear from Shastra that faith comes by hearing. We hear from Shastra that faith comes by association. Associating with devotees who have more faith than you. But also faith comes from experience. So one of the best ways, I believe, to gain faith is to do the thing that you're afraid to do. Or to give up the thing you're afraid to give up. And once you do it, you will gain faith that you're actually better off now. And how will you know that unless you do it? Okay, I'm afraid to do something, but then I do it and I see that Krishna has given me so much intelligence how to do it, or he's given me so much ability how to do it. But I was afraid to do it. There's a video of my daughter from India, she was showing me. She was standing on the banks of the Jalangi. And her other friends were in the water, and then one girl came from behind, she didn't see her and pushed her. Now she's in the water. Oh, the water's nice. I was afraid it wasn't nice. I was afraid to jump this and that. Someone just pushes you. Like, oh, that was fun. Push me again. I like that. You know, sometimes you see that with kids. They're afraid to do something. You pick them up, you swing them, you throw them up in the air, especially boys. They're afraid. You can see they're afraid. But once they do it, and that was fun. They were flying through the air. And they'll say, do that again, and you'll fly them higher. Do that again, and you'll throw them higher. Have you ever seen that? So they were afraid of something when you were doing it, but once you did it, they liked it. And now they broke through that fear. So that's one of the most powerful faith-building processes, is to actually do what you're afraid of, or give up what you're afraid to give up, and see what happens. And in Sundari Radha's question is, well, how do you know what's too much or what's too little? Well, you can know in two ways. You analyze, is this going to be helpful? If I give this up, is it going to be helpful or harmful? Because inherent in Sundari Radha's question is that sometimes you give up something and then you think about it all the time, because you're not ready to give it up. So in that sense, okay, let's say I say, Krishna Karshani, give this up, and you'll have faith that you could exist without it. So you give it up, and all day you're thinking about it. I said, don't eat blueberries anymore. And now, for the rest of your life, don't eat blueberries. And now all day you're thinking about blueberries because you can't have them. And you're thinking of blueberries more than Krishna, so then you're thinking, this is not working. This isn't good for my Krishna consciousness. I shouldn't give up blueberries yet, because now I'm just thinking of them instead of Krishna. So that's one way to know, okay, I don't have enough faith to give up blueberries. Bad example, but there's no reason to give up blueberries. They're healthy. But for lack of a better example, this point in time, this early in the morning, then, then you give it up, and then you find it is actually not healthy for you to give it up. So that's how you know this. I would like to give this up. But then the other point, which is extremely important, and Prabhupada makes this point only in one place that I know of, but the fact that he makes it in Bhagavad Gita, I think any point Prabhupada makes in Bhagavad Gita, we have to take it as if he made it everywhere. So Prabhupada said in the Bhagavad Gita, and this partially answers Sundari Radha's question. Sometimes you can't give up something. It's just you're not on that level. It's not even that you should be expected to be on that level. You're on a lower level, and on a lower level, you can't renounce certain things, or you can't surrender to a sufficient degree or a specific degree, because it's like you're in first grade. You don't study calculus in first grade. You're not on that level. That's fine. But the salient point that Prabhupada makes, which is so powerful, is that that's not a problem as long as you don't resist the instruction. What did he mean by resist the instruction? Let's say, like some people, sometimes they'll curse the instruction when they can't follow it. Oh, that instruction's bogus. Nobody can follow that. Because they can't follow it, so they curse the instruction. But what Prabhupada's saying is, if you can't follow it, don't curse the instruction. Just accept the instruction. Yeah, I accept this instruction. This is the goal. This is what I would like to achieve. I'm not resistant to that instruction. But right now, I'm not able to follow. I'm not that advanced yet. I try to follow it. I can't follow it steady, or it has some negative repercussion when I try to follow it. Okay, but I don't resist the instruction. Like for example, occasionally a devotee gets in a situation and they can't chant their rounds for whatever reason. And sometimes they may go to their spiritual master and say, can I just chant 8 rounds for like the next month or something, because this situation, I don't have time or whatever, I lost my bhakti. And so the spiritual master might say, as long as you accept the principle of 16 and you are going to get back to 16, okay, temporarily you may chant less rounds. This is rare, maybe not the best example, but it can happen on occasion. Or you can use another example. That I can't follow something. Okay, you can't follow it, but this is the principle. And as long as you accept this is the principle, and as long as you accept that this principle you want to follow, or this practice you want to follow, but presently you can't, then that's okay. That's Prabhupada's point. So the problem you get is sometimes people say, I can't follow it, and nobody can follow it, or the principle's bad, or this was a mistake, Prabhupada shouldn't have done this. You know, they make some rationale for it. So we don't want to do that. So anyway, it's like some men want to be brahmachari, so they try. And after so many years, they realize, yeah, I can do this. This is what I want. I don't want to be married. And some others realize, no, I can't do this. I have the nature of a grihastha. So they tried. They put their faith in the brahmachari ashram. And so by putting their faith, you also realize where you stand. And then, as I said before, see, the problem is also that sometimes we'll look at maybe acting in a certain way as a lesser activity. But rather than look at it as a lesser activity, just look at it as an activity which is more appropriate to your level of Krishna consciousness. It's not lesser or more, it's just appropriate to you. So I think that's a healthier way of looking at this. Because if we just look at this is higher, this is lower, then you're going to think, okay, I'm on a lower stage because I'm not very Krishna conscious. And because I'm not very Krishna conscious, if I'm on a lower stage, I'll just do everything that everybody does on a lower stage. And then that's not healthy thinking. I think it's better to see, okay, I need to do this, or I can't give this up. This is what is appropriate for me. This is the best thing for me. And this is, therefore, not higher or lower. It's just best for me. Because as soon as we say lower, then it can have a connotation that, well, whatever else is lower, I'll do that as well. As opposed to this activity or this activity, this is what is best for me, and this is what will help me in my present situation. So it's not lower or higher, it's just best for me. And that's a healthier way of looking at it. Does that make sense? So maybe instead of using words like resistance or lack of surrender, we should ask ourselves, what is best for me in this situation? Or how would I define surrender? Or how would I define sacrifice within this situation? In this situation, is this surrender? Like there's so many things to consider. You have your health, you have your relationships, you have finances, you have sadhana, you have service. And so when we say surrender, I have to consider, will all these things be in place and healthy? So maybe I take out time and surrender to my health, but that minimizes the time I would have for service. So am I not surrendered because I minimized my service? Not necessarily. If you needed to do that for your health, then you're still surrendered. It's just in your particular circumstance, this is what you're dealing with. So, if you judge your surrender to someone who's not in your situation or not on your level of Krishna consciousness, then you could get very mental. Oh, I'm not surrendered, and so on and so forth. So, what is surrender for you? What does that mean for you? What is the best thing for you in your situation? That's what's important to ask. And if I do have an attachment and I can't give it up, then you ask yourself, how can I engage this attachment? That's important. Okay, this devotee is able to give up this attachment, but I see, for me, my nature is that I have this attachment. But it's not that I want to enjoy this particular thing, it's just that I have this attachment. It's my nature. So then how can I employ that where I don't enjoy it in sense gratification, but I use it in service to Krishna because I need to do it? Like some people, they need to do business. So, okay, I'm a Vaishya, I need to do business, but it's not so I can get a lot of money and enjoy myself. But it's my nature. I just like doing it. So how can I use that nature in a way that will forward the Krishna consciousness movement? Or that's the point, right? So you might think, oh, I have to renounce this nature to do business. No, but it's your nature. How will you renounce it? If you renounce it, it's just not going to go away. You can't renounce it. So then you have to think, how can I use it? But use it in a way that I'm not thinking how I will enjoy the results of it, but how I can use it in Krishna service. So that's important also. Because the word surrender and resistance can be quite generic and global, and it could be misleading for you. Because then you're comparing surrender to somebody else. As I said before, there's certain principles which we all accept. 16 rounds, 4 regular principles, hearing Bhagavatam, associating with devotees, deity worship, these things are essential. But there are other things which will be appropriate to our level of Krishna consciousness. And so sometimes you can't compare yourself to another person, because then for you surrender means this, for him surrender means that. Like for me, surrender for me means spending sufficient time with my family, taking care of them, because my nature is to be very busy and doing work to spread Krishna consciousness, even to the point that if I'm not careful, I would neglect my family. So surrender in my situation, resistance in my situation, you could say, be around spending the time and energy with the family. But for someone else, it's just the opposite. That they're so involved with their family, they don't do any service. So the surrender to them is to be more focused on the service. So that's why we can't use surrender in a global sense. I mean, we can in some cases, but not always for everybody, because surrender, or maybe surrender for me is to take care of my health because I neglect it, but surrender to you is to not take so much care of your health because that's all, you are like very absorbed in taking care of your health. And so it's going to be different for us. And I neglect my health. So now surrender, Mahatma Prabhu, surrender. Take care of yourself. So I surrender. I take care of my health. And you, I say surrender. You minimize taking care of your health because you might be taking too much care, more than necessary. Does that make sense? So you're going to have to decide ultimately what are your obstacles, how surrender is helping you, how it's not. Yeah, I can't say a lot because I don't know your situation. There's a law of attraction of thoughts become things, play a part in our destiny, provided we're centered to Krishna. Everything you do, everything you feel, everything you say, everything you think creates some effect. And we don't always know what is creating what effect. But one thing we do know is if we do the right thing, then whatever comes of that, we should accept that. Okay, I'm chanting my rounds, I'm serving the Vaishnavas, I'm spreading Krishna consciousness, trying to be a good devotee. Okay, so whatever comes of that, then that's good. If I'm doing everything right, and yes, you're destined. You will become Krishna if you're in the right consciousness. You will be Krishna conscious for sure. Krishna consciousness, he says, I mean having faith that whatever Krishna is sending to our lives is ultimately good for us. Sometimes if things are difficult, complicated, we have doubts and lack faith. In other words, you're doubting, Krishna, why are you sending this to me? I never did anything to hurt you. Why are you hurting me? That kind of thing. We always, when things come to us, we always want to look at them and say, well, how did this get here? Okay, Krishna sent this. Well, why did he send it to me? Why didn't he send it to the devotees next door or the devotees down the street? Why did he send it to me? And so then we have to consider why. In considering why, we would naturally think, well, this is something that I need, something that I have to learn, whatever it is. In some way, we can figure it out. And as I'm saying before, what I believe is important is that sometimes what Krishna sends is actually what we created. It's not arbitrarily Krishna's just sending something. Okay, here, you need this. But sometimes the this is exactly what we're thinking or is a consequence of our behavior. It's not that Krishna's just, why did Krishna send this to me? So sometimes that question is there, but sometimes the question might be, what did I do to create this effect? Because a lot of times, as I'm saying, it's something we've done. It's not arbitrarily that Krishna's just shooting some missile at us. But, when we mistreat people, there's a reaction. When we offend Vaishnavas, there's a reaction. When we're lack in devotional service, there's a reaction. When we hold on to attachments, there's a reaction. So, we should be aware if these reactions are a consequence of my behavior, or are these reactions a form of Krishna's mercy in which he's guiding me in a certain way or instructing me in a certain way. And so we have to ask these questions. And if you're executing devotional service well, then when these things come, you'll always understand, oh, Krishna's sending these things to me because he likes me. He's helping me. He would only send things to me that are helpful. That's also the faith that develops as you advance. But specifically, that faith has to be there when you're doing things properly. Clinton says, do we have the ability to change our karma of the present situation? If so, what degree? Is it dependent on our level? Bhakti, faith, effort. Basically, how would we know when to stop trying to change the situation that we want to achieve, which is aligned in devotional service? Well, the first thing is, in a sense, a devotee, we understand that Krishna removes karma. Yeah, and so, yes, karma can change, but it's not really the mood of a devotee. Okay, today I'm going to change my karma. I don't like my karma. I'm going to see if I can get Bill Gates' karma. He's got a lot of money. That karma would be better. Or, so the devotee's attitude more is in terms of how can I just serve Krishna as best possible and not worry about whatever the karma comes from it. Because just have faith, Krishna will take care of me, and I do my best to serve him. But if you're talking about more specifically, if you're talking about something as specific like a relationship, and the relationship isn't going well, then I would definitely look into my own behavior and how it's affecting that relationship and that sense of karma. Like immediate things. How is what I'm eating affecting my health? How is what I'm thinking affecting my consciousness? How is what I'm doing or treating other people, how is that affecting relationships? And that you can change just by changing your behavior and changing your attitudes. You'll see that. Just change your attitude and people's attitudes towards you will change. So yes, definitely that can change. No question about it. Clint says, I hope it made sense. Well, if I misunderstood your question, then you can ask it again. Regarding surrender, how is it possible that in the Leelas of the Lord, the demons are not surrendered and enjoy material life at a time? of death, they still get special mercy. And get liberation compared to the devotees who suffer materially and are surrendered and also get liberation at death. Well, we don't get liberation at death. We get Krishna's lotus feet. And those demons, they were liberated because Krishna touched them. Killing is like touching. Of course, sometimes he touched them and he killed them. And so Krishna's going to touch you and kill you. You're going to get purified. And if you're going to get purified, the reactions of your sins will be removed and you'll get liberated. But they didn't get bhakti. They just got, their sins got removed. It said they merged in Brahman. They didn't have to come back, take a body in this world. But for a devotee, going to Brahman is hell because there's no devotional service there. So, I think the way we could kind of sum up all these questions is that a devotee's mood is a complete dependence on Krishna. So Krishna, you can send me to heaven, you send me to hell. I just want to serve you. You know, whatever my karma is, let it come crashing on my head. That's my world is about serving you. That's all I'm thinking about. I'm not worried about my karma. Not worried about what's going to happen at the time of death. If I'll get liberated, not liberated. I'll go back to Godhead or not. I just want to serve you. So that's why a devotee's free of anxiety. He's not worried about all these things. Right? He's just worried about surrender. And I think inherent in Sundari Radha's question is like the fear of surrender. Like, you know, if I surrender, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to my world, my peaceful little world, and my little apartment, and everything's in its place? And if I surrender, is Krishna going to send an earthquake, and just so I become detached? And we shouldn't think that way. We should think that I will surrender to Krishna. Whatever happens, happens. That's the attitude. It's just look what Prabhupada said. Surrender means not that we demand something, but we are completely dependent on His mercy. Krishna likes, He may keep His devotee in a poverty-stricken condition, or if He likes, He may keep him in an opulent position. Devotee should not be concerned in either case. Should simply be very serious about trying to satisfy the Lord again. That's what I was saying. So, you know, the demons in Krishna's Leela, they're opposing Krishna. They're not really, you know, they're in the Leela per se, but they're creating excitement in the Leela, but they're not devotees. They're opposed. Well, some of them are devotees, playing as non-devotees. But many of them are not devotees, so they're opposed to Krishna. And Krishna is nice to them. But we are supposed to have the faith. If I give my service to Krishna, give my life to Krishna, then everything I need will be taken care of, materially and spiritually. That's the idea. And He'll take care of it how He takes care of it. And no matter how He takes care of it, I just keep going forward and serving more and more. That's the idea. So now we have to ask you, what are you resisting? Why are you resisting it? What are you afraid of? And these are things you have to ask yourself. And what's most favorable for my Krishna consciousness? If Sundari Radha is saying, what if I give up something that I shouldn't give up? But Krishna, to the sincere devotee, Krishna will give the intelligence. Give this up. You're ready to give this up. Or don't give this up. But, of course, then you might say, what does it mean to be sincere? It means that you have to hear Krishna. You have to be able to hear his guidance and act on it. Yes. It's easy to surrender when things are going well. Difficult when serious problems are coming. Yes, but it's interesting that you say this, because it's actually a paradox in a sense. Because when things aren't going well, that's the time we really need Krishna's help. You say it's easy to, are we really surrendered when things are going well? I think oftentimes we surrender more when they're not going well. At least we become more dependent. So, well, I think what Krishna Karshani is saying, it's easier to see Krishna's mercy, or Krishna's merciful. It seems like he's merciful when things are going well. It seems like he's not merciful when things aren't going well. But on a higher stage of devotional service, you don't really make a distinction. You see everything as mercy. So we want to come to that level where we see everything as mercy, whatever it is. If I do something stupid, I'm going to get a bad reaction. But that bad reaction is Krishna's mercy, because he's teaching me I just did something stupid. So that's the idea. But anyway, that's the principle to understand, is that on a more advanced level of Krishna consciousness, you won't really distinguish between, what did you say, it's easy to surrender. No, you won't distinguish good from bad. It's just what it is. Yeah, for you, it's really the same. It's all a form of mercy. It's not really good or bad. Okay? So let's end now. And then we will see you on, I guess there's nothing happening. We'll see you on next Saturday. Okay? Is that all right? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi.